Hi, everyone, and welcome to this GMAT Club session about Stanford Business School. I'm really excited to be here. Let me tell you a bit about myself. While I tell you about myself, I would love to hear just who's on this live session. So if you're on the live session, you can write on the chat. By the way, you can also write questions. And if you can just tell me your name, and if you're aiming for an MBA in 2023 or 24 or 22, maybe where you're from, which business school. If you can just write a small thing in the chat, I'll see it, and then it'll be more personal. I know who you are. I'll just introduce myself. So my name is Shimri Winters. I head the strategy team at Aringo MBA Admission Consulting. I'm actually a London Business School alumnus. Sorry, Stanford. But one of our most popular schools is Stanford. So I know a lot about the school. I was a member of the interviewing committee, so I used to interview candidates for London Business School. I think that's a bit about me. I have a 660 GMAT, if anyone wants to ask about low GMATs. And I used to be a computer programmer, so a software engineer before my London Business School MBA. I've been at Aringo 8 years full-time. This is what I do. So you can probably ask me anything about the MBA world and about Stanford specifically. This is my only marketing slide today. I'm not very good at marketing. What does Aringo do? Everything from a chances estimation, helping you choose which school and when to apply, and then with school applications from the strategy till the interview negotiations. Sorry, the scholarship negotiations, and of course, everything in the middle. And we'll talk a lot about what's in the middle for the Stanford application. So check us out on aringo.com. And those were my marketing slides, and that's it. So now I want to hear a bit more about you. I'm checking out the chat just to see who's on. So it's always good. Hello, that's great. People are starting to write. I love that. Great. Meenakshi, hello. Great, thank you for joining. And of course, there'll also be Blake, hi. There'll also be questions, and I'll answer them. So this session is going to be very long. I apologize in advance. But stay tuned, because I think that we're going to cover a lot of material. So let's just go into the agenda quickly. Oh, this is Aringo. We're very, very good. I told you, check us out. Okay, so the agenda is this. This is a long presentation. Okay, just hello, everybody. Siba, hello. Great, I'm really excited you're all here. Vilaine, hello. Nice to have you. Right, just let me know where you're from and when you're applying. It also helped me kind of know who you are. So there's actually going to be 3 sections to this presentation. The first section is very, very general. I'm not even going to mention the word Stanford, but I want all of us to be on the same page. So I want us all to be to know what are top MBA programs, why do a top MBA program, who are the best MBAs, how much does a top MBA cost, can I get some funding, how much money will I make afterwards, stuff like that. Okay, it's a lot of material, and I'm going to run through it very fast because perhaps some of you know this. So the first few minutes, you'll hear me talk very quickly. I won't even look at the questions, so we can kind of move very, very fast with that. Then the second part and the third part will be more about Stanford, obviously. The second part will be some general information about Stanford. And the third part of the application, of this information session, will be about how to apply to Stanford and how to write a perfect application. So I hope that's okay. Of course, if you want to ask me questions, I can see Vilaine started to ask questions like, is it a good idea to do an MBA? That's a good question. And I think my next slides kind of answer that. So I think that's great. Again, if you're just joining now, if you can write on the chat who you are, what year you're planning to apply to an MBA and where you're from, that would be nice. I think we should start. Let's go. So again, we're starting with very general stuff. So I'm running through that so we have time for for Stanford. Again, lots of questions you can ask. I will answer all of them at the end. So if you have any questions, start writing them on the chat. So my first general slide about MBAs is, why do a top MBA program? So, all of us have local MBA options. They cost less. It might be easier to get into. Why should someone do a top MBA? The main reason I've seen most of my candidates that want a top MBA is because they want to do a career switch. They're accountants and they want to do more to lead business transactions. They're lawyers and they want to do a switch towards private equity. They're software engineers and they want to move towards program management, etc. So I see a lot of people who want to do a career switch, although I also have quite a few candidates who come in the second and third reasons for top MBAs, which are to accelerate is a second reason, which means you like what you do, you want to stay in this industry, but you want to gain some kind of advantage on your peers. And the third very common reason to do a top MBA program is you want to be a future entrepreneur, you want to open a company or found a company or just manage a company, but you need business education, you need to know how, you need the network, maybe you need the brand of the school. And this, an MBA does help for entrepreneurships. So that could be another reason why you would like to do an MBA. I actually added here kind of a me time reason as well. I don't know when you took for the last time 1 or 2 years, we'll discuss that, for yourself and kind of gained lots of valuable skills, gained knowledge, gained a new network, gained perhaps an international experience if you're going to another country. So I kind of put me time. Trust me, after the MBA, there's no more me time. You go, you work. That's life. So this might be, I don't sound too dramatic, but your last chance to take 1 or 2 years, I wouldn't say off, but I would say which are investment in yourself. Again, an MBA is a great idea if you want to make a lot of money. We'll look at the salaries. Of course, you can do a career switching. A lot of the top MBAs are in different countries. So that's, obviously an international experience, and it's a lot of fun and, intellectual. Again, I'm running. Remember, our first part of this presentation is very general, so I'm just running very quickly through this. I hope some of you or most of you know most of this, but then we'll dig in more into Stanford. What are the top MBAs in the US? Luckily, most of us know most of the big brands because the big schools in the US are big in everything. And Yale, very good in law, but have great MBAs. And Cornell, without me knowing anything about geography, they're probably very good. Without, I don't know much about computer science, but I'm sure Duke, aren't even here on the list, have a good computer science department. So the big schools usually have everything, but they're known global brands, etc. The European schools are much smaller. So London Business School and INSEAD, which are great brands, only teach business. So they might have a master in finance or a master in management, but they don't have undergraduate degrees. So what are the main differences between the European schools and the US schools? It's the same degree, you learn the same things, but the US schools are a bit more famous because, you watch a Netflix movie and the son of the hero is going to college in UCLA. He doesn't go to college at London Business School because there's no undergraduate degree at London Business School. So the big schools in the US, they're just more famous, but it doesn't mean they're better or worse. They're just bigger and famous and good in lots of areas. The second big differentiator is in the US schools, there's a lot of American students, usually around 60 or even 70% of the students are Americans. And most of the MBAs are 2 years. In the European programs, usually the business schools are very small. So, INSEAD or London Business School, a few hundred students a year. That's it in the entire university. They're mainly international students. So there aren't a lot of British students at Cambridge Judge MBA program. There aren't many French students at HEC Paris. And the MBAs are shorter, usually 1 to 1, mostly 1 to 1.5 years versus the 2 years in the US. Let's go to the next slide, which says, so how do I decide? London sounds great, Paris sounds great, New York sounds fantastic. How do I decide? There's many factors. And to be honest, it's a very personal decision. And we'll talk about Stanford as well. I don't really know what's important for you. You can do a little Excel and put some of the factors that I'll mention, but only you know what weight is important for you. So let's, I'm going to ask some questions on the chat. By the way, I forgot to mention this is an interactive session. There's going to be some quizzes later on. But for now, I just wanted to, if I give you 3 factors, so the 3 middle ones here, The first one is location. The second one is the school ranking. And the third one is the cost of the program. I'll just make it easier. Let's say the cost is identical between number 1 program and number 50, but the scholarships can change. So what's the most important factor for you? The brand, the location, or the cost? Okay, it's a question to the chat. Question to the chat. I'll wait another minute. Location, ranking, or cost of the program? What's more important for you? Hi, Satish. Welcome. Okay. Tololup said ranking. Okay, so the brand of the school, the ranking. Okay. Lovely Akamai's branding off and funding. Okay, so you're looking, you're also thinking about how much is this going to cost me, and I can see, so, and Satish is saying location, and Rajiv is saying brand and cost. Okay, Georgie, hi, brand. Okay, so I think what you can see here, and it's funny, Manman, hi, and cost and ranking. So it's strange. I've been working at Aringo for 8 years, and I think only in the last year or two, I'm kind of understanding that different people, wow, what a surprise, have different criteria. And only you can decide what's important for you and where to study. Okay, and I had 4 or 5 people this year that, got accepted to Harvard Business School and didn't go. And, for someone else, that's a shock. You get into Harvard, you don't go. And one of them went to Kellogg, but with a full scholarship. The other one went to Stanford. One didn't go to an MBA. His startup started, he raised some money and his startup started getting some traction. And he said, actually, when he tells this to other people, he got into Harvard and didn't go, people are shocked. So what I saw was this different criteria. I put in some more criteria. I have to admit, I think they're a bit smaller, but for other people, they might be important. For example, is there some kind of recruiter that comes to a very specific school? If your dream is to work for Uber, and Uber have their headquarters in California, yes, there might be an advantage for the location of California. But again, if you saw, although we were talking about recruiters, I took you to the location. Same, I'm very interested in finance. Wow, what a surprise that the location of New York, for example, NYU and Columbia, or London, for example, London Business School, are good schools for finance. So again, a lot of times the location changes kind of the other criteria, for example, of recruiter or something specific course like that. You can keep asking questions on the chat. I'll answer all of them later. I promise, I'll try. So let's continue a bit with the general stuff. Again, we'll finish this quite quickly. A top MBA program is very, very expensive. It can cost around $140,000 or even $145,000 for the tuition if it's $70,000 per year. Remember, US schools, 2 years. If you add living expenses, etc., we're easily at $200,000. So huge, huge cost. The European schools are cheaper from the, one reason, there are shorter programs, right? So it obviously makes sense that they're cheaper because they're shorter programs. Also, the return on investment is quicker because you go and you work quicker, right? You can work after a year or two. How do you fund your MBA? Well, if you have money, that would be great. If not, all the schools have scholarships, and we can also discuss how to get a scholarship. But basically, it will be very similar to how to get into a top school, because the more attractive your profile is for acceptance, there's a good chance that it would be more attractive for a scholarship as well. There are also some specific scholarships, for example, for ex-military personnel or for candidates that come from Africa. So you need to check this out per school. There aren't many external scholarships for MBAs. There's a lot on the internet, but I haven't seen many actually receive them. But still, do some research. And some of these fellowships need to apply to them really in advance. So just make sure that you're not missing anything. So it costs a lot of money, but on the other hand, the top MBA program, will also ensure that you have a very good salary. We'll dig into this even more when we talk about Stanford. But as you can see, the top salaries, the straight out of the MBA are quite similar. And before I was asking what's important, kind of ranking or cost or location, and a lot kind of said ranking. But if your theory behind that was because the higher the rank, the more salary I'll make, I hope that this little table kind of changed that. Because as you can see, the salary in Chicago Booth is quite similar to the salary at Columbia. And the salary in Stanford is higher than the salary at McCombs, which is in Austin. But actually living in San Francisco is going to cost you way more than living in Austin. So maybe McKinsey California, maybe McKinsey San Francisco are paying a bit more to their consultants than McKinsey Austin, but actually you're doing the same job, same role, and kind of making the same salary. So salaries are very different. Yes, there's a little jump here after 3 years at Stanford. That's why we're doing a presentation about Stanford. I'll go into the Stanford salaries in more detail. European salaries are quite similar. They're not very far. And right now, Ukraine-Russia situation or any European versus Brexit versus US currency issues, and these salaries can go up, the dollar can go down, so no one knows what's going to happen in a couple of years in the economy, but the salaries are very similar. And again, the changings between Paris and New York are mainly because the exchange rates of euro and dollar. But those are the jobs, and I have the next slide. This is the one slide that isn't from Stanford, I took from London Business School. The main recruiters and the positions post-MBA in Europe are very, very similar to the positions and to the recruiters post-MBA in the US. I will show you the top 10 recruiters from Stanford, and you will see that they're all on the slide of London Business School. Okay, so you'll see the Google and Amazon and McKinsey and BCG, et cetera, in Stanford as well. So I'm just running through this very, very quickly. We're nearly there. We're nearly at the Stanford slides. When do you apply? Well, the best is to apply in round 1, which is 1 year before your studies. So if someone's aiming for September 23, they can apply in September 22 already. It is better to apply in round 1, but only if you're ready. What does ready mean? If you can get another 20 points on your GMAT, wait for round 2. If your application was rushed and you didn't do it in a good way, wait for round 2. Only apply when you're ready, even if it means missing round 1 and applying in round 2. Okay, for nearly every school, that would be my suggestion. Wait till you are ready. On the other hand, the last rounds tend to be very small, so don't wait too much. Don't wait for March or April. Some schools in Europe have different or more deadlines, and of course there's some schools that start in January, very few. You can look on aringo.com, check us out, and we have all the information there. Okay, 2 more slides and we're going to talk about Stanford. What are schools looking for generally? How can I apply to business school? So let's kind of start from the right, because that's kind of a very obvious one. So they do look at your academics, and maybe in the chat, can someone kind of say what their GPA was out of a scale of 4, or if it was a different scale, they can tell me, a different scale. It can be out of 100, out of 5. How did you do in your undergraduate degree? Is there someone here with a special merit? Is there someone here with a special merit? 3.6, okay. So that's good. 3.26, okay. So luckily for whoever didn't do so well on their undergraduate degree, the undergraduate degree isn't the most important thing. And a way 386, great. 378, fantastic. So a way to overcome, for example, a low GPA would just be to have a high GMAT. And usually, again, schools look at your GPA, but that can be around 10% of your entire application. So in the chat, how much do you think the GMAT is out of your entire application? So if the GPA is around 10 points, 10% out of 100, how much do you think the GMAT is? I love this interaction session. You're giving me all the answers. I'm drinking my tea. How much is the GMAT when if I'm looking at your application, I'm looking at the GMAT, what percentage do you think I'll give that GMAT score? By the way, I'll answer all your questions, okay? So keep asking the long questions, and I'll answer all the questions. So Georgie, thank you. You're saying 25%. I like that. Tululop, you're saying 25. Teja's saying 20. Ikra 10. Okay. Lovely. Akoma is 40. So you're kind of all right. I think if we do some kind of, we take all the comments and we kind of look for the average, I think we'll probably get to the right number. Usually the GMAT can be 30% or 30 points out of 100. So that's crazy, right? That's so much. It's unbelievable even. And yeah, that really is unbelievable. And so you can see that even if you didn't get such a good GPA, a high GMAT can probably overcome that. By the way, a very high GPA can overcome kind of a mediocre GMAT. But again, the reason schools put such a high emphasis on the GMAT is from the reason that, one of you studied in India, another person studied in Germany, one of you studied accounting, another person studied engineering. It's very hard to compare a degree in engineering in a very, very good school to a degree in philosophy in a very, very bad college. Okay, I was going to mention a bad college, but I won't. So because schools say, well, actually, it's very hard to compare between the two, I won't compare. I'll give you 10 points, but I'll look at one exam one day. It's called GMAT. Okay, you can do a GRE as well. And that exam, I'm going to give a very, very high emphasis on looking, did you do well or not on that one exam? And that's why schools can give up to 30% of your application, 30% weight, just to this one exam. That's why GMAT is important. Although Aringo loves working with candidates with low GMATs. We're actually very good at that, but we can talk about that later. So academics are important. The second thing the schools will look at is vision. All the schools will ask you, why do you want an MBA? What are your short-term, long-term career goals? Okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they know that your plans may change. They understand this. But still, the schools just want to make sure that you have a plan. All the schools want to make sure that you really, really want to study there. So you need to show a lot of school interest. And even if you're applying to Stanford and to Berkeley, each one of them, you're going to have to tell them why you want that specific school. Okay, schools are really interested to hear why them. They're less interested to hear why other schools. So if they ask you why Stanford, and you answer, if I don't get into Harvard, Stanford's my backup plan, that's not a good answer. Okay, you need to explain to them why the school. MBA programs love leadership experience. If you have some from work, great. If you don't, maybe from your extracurricular activities, maybe from university, that would be great. International exposure is great. Schools understand that not everybody lived abroad or worked with international teams. But if you don't have any international exposure, that is a minus, especially for European schools. Schools like INSEAD, London Business School really put a high emphasis on this. I'm actually jumping to the smart and dependable, very hard to prove, right? This is a very soft thing. But if you can demonstrate this in your CV, essays, that would be great. I left the broad horizons for last because I love that. When I used to interview for London Business School, I used to kind of split up what I'm looking for in candidates into three. The first is academic. Okay, you're going for a degree. Will you be academically good enough? The second is your professional experience, because MBAs is all about your professional experience. But the third is kind of everything else. Are you an interesting person, or are you a dry biscuit? Are you, would I like being with you in class? At London, you drink a lot of beer. Would I like drinking a beer with you after class? Okay, and if the answer is no, well, that's not good enough. And I've had candidates with a 780 GMAT that I, told London Business School not to accept, because they were very good academically, very good professionally, but nothing else. And I don't think I would have enjoyed an experience to be with someone like that in class. Okay, this is the last slide, or a general slide before we step into Stanford at last. Why is it such a big deal to apply? Because it's just very long. So all the schools will need a CV. That makes sense, a resume. There's a lot of schools that ask for a lot of essays. INSEAD France, 7 essays. Soon I'll show you Stanford. There's 2 mandatory essays, but there's also 3 optional ones. 2 recommendations. You need to find 2 recommenders. That takes time as well. You need the GMAT. I'm sure there's some people here online that have been looking and working on the GMAT for months and months and months. If English is not your mother tongue, or you didn't study in English, you might need an English proficiency test. It depends where. So anyway, you need a lot of work, and this can also take 3 months. So the GMAT can take a few months, the application process can take a few months. You need to prepare in advance. Okay, last slide, just whoever doesn't know. So let's say you prepared all of this. You prepared your CV, your essays, your recommendations, you did your online application, you paid the school fee for it, you did all this. Then you submit your application in round 1. This can be in September. Then you go and bite your nails for a bit. And most schools, after 5 or 6 weeks, will come back to you with an answer. Have you passed to the next stage? Where the next stage usually would be an interview. The interview can be with a student, with an alumnus, like I used to interview, or with an admissions rep, someone that works at the school. And then usually 4, 5, 6 weeks after that, you get the decision. Of course, there's exceptions. There's schools that work quicker. There's schools that give everybody interviews. There's schools that have a video interview. But this is the basic process. If you apply middle of September, at the beginning of December, you should have the answer. And between that, somewhere, you should have an interview. So that's the process for all schools. Okay, you can continue asking questions because now, finally, let's go into Stanford. Yay. So it only took us 20 minutes to reach the beginning of our presentation. So I'm just reminding you our agenda. We finished with the general stuff. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes like statistics and information about Stanford. And then I'm going to talk slower when we talk about the Stanford application. I'm reminding you it's going to be an interactive session. I'm going to have some questions for you. So be prepared with your keyboards and the chat session, whoever's on the live YouTube. So Stanford is definitely one of the best schools in the world. There's so many MBA rankings. I think I tried to kind of hint to you before when showing you the salaries. It doesn't really matter if you go to the top school, if you go to the number 3 school, you'll go to the same recruit, or even to the number 8. You'll go to the same recruiters, you'll probably get the same salary at the end. Having said that, Stanford is a bit of a league of its own, and it's one of the most prestigious schools in the world. Definitely one of the hardest schools to get into. On a regular year, without COVID and different things which actually made acceptance even harder, Stanford has 6% acceptance rate. So it's the school with the lowest acceptance rate out there. If we compare it to Harvard, which maybe sounds a very good school, it might have 9% acceptance rate. Okay, and I'll show you this in the next slide. The reason Stanford is so sought after is it has a great brand. It's in a great location in San Francisco. The class size isn't so big, so 426 people. There's a lot of international students. There's quite a high percentage of female students as well. This is quite good for MBA programs. We're still a bit behind, unfortunately, and some schools only have 30 or 35%. As you can see, the average GMAT is crazy. So average 738. And let's think a bit about the pie chart I showed you before. So if your GMAT is below average, if your GPA is below average, and if your professional career isn't something too exciting, you're trying to apply to the hardest school in the world to get into, it's probably going to be impossible. Okay, so think about all these factors. Think how difficult it is to get into Stanford. You need to be amazing in all the factors, or in most of them. Is Stanford right for you? So first of all, I want to say I might ruin something for some of the people on this chat and on this session. I speak to hundreds of candidates each year, hundreds. Around 80% of them start by, I always say, okay, which school were you thinking of applying to? And around 80% say, I've done my research and I have 2 schools in mind. And they say Harvard and Stanford. Okay, so first of all, remember that another 80% are saying those 2 schools, which make them very, very hard to get accepted into them. So I know Stanford might seem perfect for a lot of you, but unfortunately, a lot of you might not get in with their 6% acceptance rate. So first of all, watch this video because I hope my tips will actually help you get in, but also prepare backup schools because yes, it's very, very difficult to get into. Their mission, as you can see, is very different than a lot of other schools. And a lot of other schools are kind of looking for managers, looking for people to manage the world. And if you look at Stanford, they're kind of looking for people with ideas that want to change the world. Okay, leaders, the one that change the world. It's a very different concept than managing the world or managing a big company. So like we said, it's an amazing brand. The MBA is 2 years. Yes, they also have a program for more experienced candidates called AMc&x. And I'm just putting both of them kind of together here, but the AMc&x is a 1 year, very similar to MBA program for more experienced candidates. So if you have more than 10 years of experience, you can apply to their 1 year MBA called AMc&x. You can actually apply to both programs. If you're borderline, if you have 8 to 12 years, you can just tick 2 boxes, same application, press send, and you're actually buying 2 tickets for the price of 1. You're applying also to the 2-year MBA and the 1-year AMc&x. If I continue with Stanford, again, amazing brand, amazing location, small class, very, very, very good at collaboration. The students, when you talk to them, you can really see it's a very collaborative environment, very dynamic. The students do a lot on campus. They do a lot of conferences, a lot of clubs. There's a lot going on there. That's it. So I have a few more slides, which are very specific. I'm not, I just wanted to give you kind of a sense. Of course, this is a live YouTube session, but you can revisit it afterwards and pause this screen and the next one, just to see the first year at Stanford is mainly core courses. And core courses are kind of what you would expect to see in every MBA program. They would be finance, and finance 2, and marketing 2, and microeconomics and macroeconomics and organization behavior, etc., etc. So there's kind of soft skills and hard skills, but they're core courses. There isn't a lot of electives and selection. They kind of give you this business foundation in the first year. The second year is very different, and now you can take different electives. One of the main advantages at Stanford is you can also do a dual degree, very hard to get into, but you could do a dual degree, and you can just take courses from other Stanford university departments. And if you're really interested in education, you could do either a dual degree or just take 1 or 2 courses from a different faculty. I've actually had that. I've had an MBA that did a dual degree with management in education. Of course, public policy and things like that. So what are the electives? You can take whatever electives you want. You can take electives in entrepreneurship, electives in finance, electives in marketing, wherever you think your career or whatever you think you would prefer to study, you could do that. So that's the second year, lots of electives. Between the first year and the second year, you usually do an internship. It's a paid internship. And a lot of the interns get a job offer at the end of the internship. Like I said, the one thing to remember about Stanford is the collaborative environment. It's a great, great school to be a student at. Some of the schools are less collaborative. I know it sounds kind of obvious. It's not. There's many, many student clubs. They're very friendly to partners. If you're coming with partners or even with kids, super friendly. There's even a partners club, etc. A lot of support for everything, for your career, for your ambitions. A lot of student activities, a lot of clubs, etc. So amazing, amazing to study there. We just have 1 or 2 more slides, and then we'll dig into the application and to the interactive session. One thing important I really wanted to mention was the career, kind of the post-MBA career at Stanford. There's a huge career management center. And their only objection, the only reason they exist is to find you a job at the end of your MBA. Also because that's what they want to do, and also because this goes into their ranking, right? How many students found a job and what were their salaries, and I'll show you that soon. So there's a dedicated career services, career management center. And again, they help you with job training, and they bring employers to the campus. They help you with interview training. There's workshops, there's everything. So the hard thing is to get into Stanford. Afterwards, there's a lot of assistance to find a job. I actually downloaded some statistics about the industries that Stanford MBAs worked at. I was surprised. I thought technology would be the biggest, as Stanford is close to the Silicon Valley. I was wrong. This is from 2021 employment report. I'm betting technology will grow, but still finance was the biggest. And technology is growing, it used to be kind of consulting and finance, the two big ones, and then all the rest. So now we can see there's kind of three big ones: technology, finance, and consulting. But you can see Stanford isn't just about IT or about technology. You can definitely go to media, you can go to healthcare, you can go to tourism, you can go to finance, of course, or consulting, real estate. There's other sectors that Stanford graduates go to. Okay, if we look at the money, so it's very similar to what I showed you before. This is, again, an official Stanford report. So the average salary, or the median, or the mean, I just call it the average because it's kind of the same number here, would be $160,000 at the end of your graduation. On that, there's different performance bonuses, and it's usually also a nice sign-up bonus. So you can see the kind of the sums here. The salary is above 200K in the first year because the bonuses, etc. Who are the top recruiters at Stanford? Well, it's the exact same companies I showed you from London Business School. Okay, so you would have the big IT companies, the big tech companies, and you'll have the big consultants, and you'll have the big finance institutions. Those are the big ones. But I kind of said, if you check out the top MBA programs, I put here the top US programs, but check out INSEAD or London Business School, you'll kind of see the same list, just to be completely honest. Like we said, the acceptance rate for Stanford is probably the hardest school in the MBA world to get into, with 6% acceptance rate. One of the reasons is it's a smaller class. Another reason is it's one of the most sought after schools in the world. Okay, so that was my general Stanford data. And just remember, Stanford is super competitive. Check out the recruitment, etc. Maybe it's not suitable for you. Definitely, if you have this collaborative style and you can prove that you've been working in this kind of style in the past in your professional experience and in maybe in your extracurriculars, etc. So maybe you're the person that Stanford are looking for. Okay, so now we finally made it to the third part of the presentation. And keep asking questions. Again, we have another 10 slides, and then I'm going to answer all your questions. But now I hope we got to one of the interesting parts of the presentation, which is how to get into Stanford. And all you need to get into Stanford is me. No, let's not exaggerate. You need a lot of other things as well, but I will help you with some of the things. Okay, so if you want to apply to Stanford, again, we looked at the general slides. It's very similar. You have the same prerequisites. You're going to need a GMAT or a GRE. By the way, either they're the same in terms of the school. They just want you to have one of them. No difference. If you need a TOEFL, if you didn't study in English, or English is not your native language, you might need a TOEFL on IELTS, so an English proficiency test. And you need an undergraduate degree. If you have all this, you can pay your registration fee, and now you can apply. What does the application look like? So very similar to what I showed before. You need a resume. Again, I'm showing the information from last year. Although Stanford has made changes from year to year, very minor changes. Okay, so there have been some changes in the application, not in the main essay. So I'll show you that in the next slide, but in some of the optional essays, etc. So obviously, just if you're looking at this application, just quickly open Stanford application just to check that it's identical. For 2023, as of today, June 1st, 2022, Stanford application is not open yet, but it should open up in the next few days. There's some optional essays. We will discuss those as well. Is it mandatory to answer the optional essays? The answer is no, but we'll discuss how to do that in a good way. And you need 2 recommenders that will supply 2 recommendations. Of course, there's also the online application, etc. Just to give you a bit of a timeline thing, working with us just on Stanford takes a month. Okay, just on the application. It takes that long. It takes time to, get to the best results of, all these documents that you need to submit. So just take your time. Again, don't rush. Even if you want to be ready for round 1, but you're not ready, wait for round 2. Okay, we've had many Stanford round 2 admits in very similar statistics to round 1. Okay, so don't be under pressure for round 1 if you're not ready. What is Stanford looking for? Kind of similar to what I showed you before that all schools are looking for. Okay, But here they do put this emphasis on this contribution and collaboration, etc. So definitely try and show that from your undergraduate degree, from your personal experiences, traits, etc., and from your professional life. So that's this personal qualities and contribution. Did you just go to your job, or did you contribute more to your workplace? Maybe you were in charge of, I don't know, beers on Thursday night, or you were in charge of some kind of knowledge base, or your manager left for maternity leave and you replaced him or her. Okay, this is kind of deeper contribution. Obviously, Stanford love if you have leadership experience. If not, try and show some kind of leadership potential. And, they're looking for someone smart. And I think that goes without saying. And then, you could prove that in various ways. For example, have a good GMAT or GPA, or just be very good at what you do. Maybe you're promoted faster than your peers, or maybe you got some kind of merit or some kind of award. Lots of ways to show this, and I'll show you lots of examples soon. But that's what Stanford are looking for. Okay, so let's talk about the first element. It's the MBA resume that you need to apply for Stanford. First of all, an MBA resume is very different than your job-seeking resume. Let me just give you an example from me. I used to be a programmer, and I'm assuming my resume, I don't remember, I'll dig it up. I'm assuming it says knows C++. That's a programming language. I'm assuming it says very good with databases or something like that. But my MBA resume would look very different. It would probably say managed 2 people, worked on a project worth $5 million, and deployed it 2 weeks ahead of schedule. So I'm showing lots and lots of results, and even quantifiable results, right? I said 2 weeks. I'm managing 2 people. The project is worth $5 million. So it's a very different resume than my job-seeking resume. Don't forget to show how special you are. And again, you can't kind of say I'm the best, but if you were promoted ahead of schedule, if you were selected for something out of a team, if you got a special award, definitely show all this. Don't forget the MBA programs and Stanford don't know all the employers. And you might work for the biggest hotel network in Norway, but I'm not sure your Stanford admissions person that's reading your resume knows that this is the biggest hotel chain in Norway. So just mention your company description as well. Obviously, show your responsibilities. We said awards, etc. And in the next slides, we're going to talk about your career goals. Try and connect somehow the resume to your career goals. Even if you're doing a career shift and you're a lawyer that wants to work in private equity, try and show some kind of connection. For example, you were giving legal advice to young startups, and now you want to work in private equity and give them strategic advice or invest in these young startups. So there is some kind of connection. And I gave here kind of an example, a not good example. Yes, a lawyer dealing with real estate. I suppose that's a job-seeking example. But your Stanford resume would kind of say head of the biggest law firm real estate department in Germany, and I'm leading a team of 4, and I'm in charge of this and this money. And I'll show you another example shortly. So that's kind of an MBA and a Stanford resume. So that's the professional experience. Of course, the second section, sometimes we start with it, is your academics. Don't forget to show if you had a great GPA, show that. If you had some kind of merit, show that. But apart from the GPA and the merits, if you did something else, maybe you were in the Students Association, maybe you did an exchange, maybe you volunteered, anything else that can show that collaborative, so it can show that you did way more than just going to study, Stanford would love that. So anything you can show, you can share with the school, share it in the resume already, because this is the first document the schools will look at, first document that Stanford will look. They might stop there. It might not be interesting enough. So we don't want them to stop there. We want to be interesting. And the third thing, especially for Stanford, one of the most important sections is the extracurricular activities. Now, I have a lot of candidates that tell me, listen, I don't really volunteer anywhere. Okay, that's okay. It would be better if you did. That's okay. Maybe you volunteered when you were in university. Maybe you just have some kind of great hobby. Maybe you ran a marathon. Maybe you don't volunteer, but you actually supported some kind of charity in some kind of way, or you volunteered 3 years ago. Or there's a reason you don't volunteer because you're in charge of something in the office, which is a social gathering. So just show anything which isn't professional. Remember my dry biscuit guy. Anything that's not work and not academics, try and show that. That's very important for a school like Stanford. And my last, okay, sorry, we'll show an example, and then I'll tell you my last comment about CVs and resumes. So let's just look at an example. And first of all, I hope you agree. It looks nice and neat. And I'm showing my undergraduate degree. And I'm showing, I'm starting my education. First of all, first line here, that shows Bachelor of Arts, magna cum laude. Already I said, I got a special merit. I'm a very good student. Second line, I kind of mentioned it again, 3.95, Dean's List, So I mentioned straight away my achievements. And then I also gave another merit that I got, an award, outstanding student, something. And I also was in the student union. And what was that? Our venture capital club. So, I'm showing not just my academics, but I'm showing, how collaborative I was or how much volunteering I did throughout university. This is a great education example. Again, 3 bullets, but 3 very strong bullets. If we look at my work experience, I made something up, sorry. So first of all, Aringo Strategy Consulting, not everybody knows who Aringo Strategy Consulting are. So I gave here kind of a employer description, and I explained what we do. And maybe it's a very small company. So I just said, we kind of give strategic advice to Fortune 500 companies, but I didn't mention, and we have a revenue of $10 billion, okay? Because we don't. So I just mentioned what we have. I mentioned that I'm leading a team of 3. I kind of showed I created something. Maybe there was more money in it. So something like that. And you can see I can show here my previous job as well. And, I did something and it impacted and there was a budget and maybe I did it quicker and something like that. Lots of achievements. Okay. And my last comment about my resume, I hope you're ready. This is our interactive session. Is looks matter. And if you look at this resume, it's a very good one. And the text is very, very good. But actually, it's not nicely formatted. So looks matter. And this is our interactive session. I'm going to drink my tea. And you guys in the chat can tell me if you can see any formatting mistakes. Again, I'm not looking for any text mistakes. I'm just looking for some formatting mistakes. Meanwhile, I'll actually answer your last question because it's relevant. A resume can only be 1-pager. Even if you have 20 years of experience, 50 years of experience. I actually worked with a candidate who was 62 this year on Stanford MSX and on MIT for one year for senior candidates. And we did a 1-page resume. Okay, so resume, 1 page. Okay, back to our presentation. Keep asking questions. By the way, we only have a couple more minutes for the presentation, where we'll go through other Stanford elements. Here's my resume, but looks matter. Can you spot some formatting mistakes? I'm drinking. Can you spot? Okay, there's one spot. I'm not going to read them out yet because I'm waiting for everybody to type. Look for formatting mistakes. Can you spot some formatting mistakes? By the way, if you spot them, just try and mention maybe where you can see that, in which bullet. Some formatting mistakes. Again, I can see already some comments. Very good, very good. I can tell you that most of you are kind of mentioning the same comment. I won't go into that yet, but there's still lots of mistakes. Okay, I'm going to start. Okay, bit more. I love this part. You're working. I'm not doing anything. You're spotting my mistakes. I know this sounds silly, but remember, this is the first document that Stanford admissions will look at. And the first thing they'll look at before reading your bullets is just looking at the document. And if I would get a document like this, again, I know it might sound wrong. This is a huge issue. I would already start with giving you a bad point or whatever. Okay, I love it. We already have 10 comments on the formatting. I'm going to give you another half a minute. You can also look at the text. Maybe there's some inconsistencies. That's also something. But again, not in terms of what I did, but maybe I just didn't place it in the right way. So some inconsistencies. Usually formatting is all about inconsistencies, right? Because it's okay to align everything to the left. Just make sure you're aligning everything to the left. It doesn't matter if you do it 1 inch or 2 inch to the left. Just make sure you're consistent. So again, when I say formatting mistakes, I usually mean inconsistencies. Okay, wow. I think I've done this session 3 times already. I think this is the most comments I've ever received. So I like that. And I'm just going to, so well done, by the way. You've spotted a lot of them. So you've mentioned, actually, I'm not going to read everything. Sidraf, I think you're my champion because you've seen quite a few. Vikram, you've seen also some really good ones. Raj, 4th bullet. Not sure what the 4th one is. Okay, need to think about that one. Headers, nice one. Okay, Kavya, nice one with the headers. Wow, Vikram with the font, that was well spotting. Let me show you, I think, all the things, okay? I'm actually going to show you them one by one. I think there isn't one line here that I did a good job in the formatting. So there isn't even, okay, you know what? I wrote my name in a good way. But line number 2, it might sound silly to you, but again, if the Stanford reviewer is doing his diligence, is looking at your CV, and this is the first thing they'll see, from some kind of reason, between the phone number and the email and the address, there's different symbols. Okay. Now it doesn't really matter. Do you put a backslash? Do you put a comma? Do you put a dash? Do you put 3 spaces? It doesn't really matter what you do. But be consistent. This is silly. This is just, why can't you just put the same line? It actually makes me cross when I see a CV like this. Okay, I'll calm down. So I think one of you, I can't remember who, mentioned kind of fonts and capital letters. I don't know if you mentioned this or not, but this is where you should look. So there's actually 2 mistakes here, right? Or 2 inconsistencies. Okay, community experience. It looks very nice. By the way, it's in the center. Next time I'll put one of them aligned to the left. Okay, so don't tell the next time I show this. They're both in the center. I think I used the same font size and maybe the same font style. Okay, I didn't try and put Arial and Times New Roman in the other one. Okay, I put the same font, but I think you can see that additional information is in bold and community experience isn't, and community experience is in capital letters, but additional information isn't. Something here is weird. Okay, like just keep the same format. How hard can it be? Okay, we said there's going to be mistakes in every single line. Let's move to the next line. I think most of you said alignment. You're absolutely right. By the way, it sounds so easy. This is the biggest mistake I see, in inconsistencies in resumes. Alignment. I see lots of resumes that they also have bullets within bullets, which I personally don't like, but the alignments there go crazy. So try and keep the same alignment. How hard is it to move 2016 to the right? Right? You can see, Aringo Youth was there. I don't know, this line where it says China is really to the right. Let's just put everything aligned to the right. Let's continue. Next line. Every line there's a problem here. Let's continue. Oh, okay, I jumped here. Okay, this one is actually for advanced. Okay, this one's a very tough one, and I also told you kind of look at the formatting. So debatable, is this formatting or not? But I actually decided to use 2 different descriptions for money. In the top one, I just put $20M. And in the second bullet, I decided to put the digits 15 and then put the whole word million before I used M and write USD before I just used $. Why am I doing this so inconsistently? This is silly. Okay, now which is better? I don't mind. They're the same as long as I understand what you're trying to say and as long as you're consistent. Okay, alignment issues. Okay, I missed this one before, but this is, so we said every line there's an issue. As you can see, Aringo Youth, whatever that is, I don't know what I was trying to say, my job before the business clinic, is not aligned under the business clinic. So is this another job? Is this within the business clinic? Something's wrong here. I hope you can see, well, okay, Aringo, we always spell with capital letters, but I hope you can see that Aringo, I put in capitals, the business clinic not in capitals, something's a bit off here. And again, I think the 2007, 2008, I could have kind of moved it to the right a bit more. This is really, I know, annoying and who cares, but why is there a full stop at the end of youth and there isn't a full stop at the end of any other bullet? Okay, so sorry, I don't think anyone spotted that. But that one's a tough one, okay? So again, you can say, who cares? And I kind of agree with you. Who cares? The content's what matters. And if you put a full stop at the end of one bullet, no one's going to say you didn't get into Stanford because of that full stop. I promise you. But this resume is just sloppy, right? There's so many formatting issues. It's just starting to be annoying. We showed the dollars. Again, alignment here. I think you kind of understood that. Why don't you align this to the left? And here, again, lots of inconsistencies. I wrote 34 countries, but then I lived in Singapore for 3 years with digits, and here it's letters. Again, just keep consistent. Okay, so the bottom line was there's so many inconsistencies in this CV. It just looks sloppy. It just looks like you rushed or you didn't look at this too much. And again, this is just one example. Of course, the content matters most, but this is just one example that how you really need your application to be perfect. Talk to Aringo about that, but how you need this application to be perfect if you're trying to get into the hardest school in the world to get into. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to ask you 1 or 2 other questions soon. Okay, I aligned the resume properly. I hope you like this. By the way, no, it does look okay now because the community experience and additional information are in capitals. Everything's aligned to the right. All the bullets are aligned to the left. Aringo is still in capitals, but maybe that's okay. It depends on the company. Maybe I should have put my name in capitals here. I'm not sure. Oh, I love, I fixed the lines at the top. Remember with the backslash line, so they're all the same. And there's no full stop at the end of youth. There's no dot. So, and also at the end, look, travel to 34 countries in 3 years, so it looks the same. So it just looks a bit better. And now your Stanford reviewer can actually read the content and read the application and now can judge you in a fair way. Okay, let's move into the essays. Stanford actually asked, I think, the hardest essay in my world, in the MBA applications world. Again, check out next year's application if you're applying for 23 or next year for 24. Stanford have changed the word count for this essay sometimes, for the first essay. They haven't changed the text of it, but they changed the word count. So just check out, you have 700 words, 1,000 words. Is it unlimited? Is it limited? And the essay, the text is very simple. What matters most to you and why? Obviously, we're going to look at the answer, which isn't very simple. And the Stanford second essay is actually a bit more straightforward, which is kind of why Stanford? Okay, so now let's drill down into these 2 mandatory essays. There's also some optional essays. The first essay, okay. Oh, actually both essays, okay. So this is just some general tips. I know it sounds so obvious, but I just have to say this once. Make sure you are answering the questions. Okay, I'll say it again. Read the question, read your answer, make sure you answer the question. I've seen amazing answers, but they didn't answer the question. Okay, what matters most? In your answer, it should say, what matters most to me, or it's very important for me, or some way to answer that question. If they ask, why Stanford? I don't want to hear only about your childhood. I want to hear why Stanford. So make sure you're answering the question. Of course, look at the word count, etc. Don't go over that if you don't have to. Obviously, promote yourself. What do you think Stanford want to hear? Shimri only said collaborative style 100 times in this session. Maybe they're looking for collaboration. I'm going to show that through my essays. I'm going to promote myself. I'm going to show how great I am, but collaborative as well. Of course, do research. Okay, and maybe mention a club or professor or a reason why you want Stanford. But don't just give a supermarket list here, okay? Don't just say, oh, I really want Stanford because 50 courses. No, they know their own website. They've seen their courses, okay? They want to understand why you want Stanford. Of course, collaborative. I haven't said this for 8 seconds, so make sure you can demonstrate how you can contribute to their community. Maybe you can lead a club. Maybe you can run a club. Maybe you can bring your past employer to give a lecture. I don't know what, it's very personal, but show how you can contribute to the community. And of course, you're going to have to talk a bit about you and maybe about your career and your past and your future. Don't be shy about, showing who you are and what you want to do. Okay, let's talk a bit about the what matters most, okay? In our jargon, WMM, okay? What matters most? So very, very tough question. And let me give you some good examples. What matters most, and this is for your chat. Yes, please tell me the best answer you think. So I'm going to give you 4 options. What matters most to me is world peace. I aim to make peace between different countries, and that's why I want to go to Stanford. So that can be a what matters most, right? That's a great cause, world peace. Number 1. What matters most to me, number 2, is my family. I love walking with my wife on the beach and taking my kid, and I'm going to teach him next year to ride a bicycle. That's what matters most to me. So 1 was global peace. Number 2, my family. Number 3, what matters most to me is my job. I love my job. I love to get promoted. I hope I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm very good at my job. I'm a something, banker, lawyer, accountant. And that's what matters most to me, is to be, a great, leader at my job. And the 4th one, what matters most to me is to be a good human being, to help my environment and to make the world a better place. So we had one essay. Who would you choose? One essay: global peace, family. He loves his job, and make the world a better place. Okay, global peace, family. 1, you can even answer just a digit. 1, global peace. 2, loves my family most. 3, loves work most. 4, wants to make a positive, whatever, better world. What do you think the best topic for what matters most is? Very hard, the what matters most. Such a difficult essay. By the way, I've seen all these answers. Okay, I've seen an answer, I want to do global peace. I want to, be a better employee in my work. I want to be a better employee. I love my family. I've seen that a lot. And of course, I want to, help environment, etc. So actually, it's a not fair section. So I loved to just thank you for answering. So yes, you're saying, I love to help environment, something like that. And Felipe is saying the same thing. I just want to help, as much as I can. To be honest, and Kit, I think you get my 5 stars. So I'm sending them your way. That's true. There's no right answer. It was a trick question. But 4 did sound a bit better. So I'll try and make it less tricky next time. There's no right answer. First of all, it needs to be connected to you. And not everybody can say they love their wife and kids. Maybe you don't have a wife and kids. Okay? And not everybody does want to do a better environment, global environment. Maybe your what matters to you is to be very, the best consultant out there. That's fine. Just tell us what matters to you. Okay? It was a trick question. I'm sorry. It really needs from you to be kind of personal, to tell your story, okay? And you can't just, tell bullets here. You really need to be sincere and tell a story here. And then you can kind of, when you tell the story, you can start wherever you want. You can start from your childhood, you can start from your professional experience, but you can kind of say how something happened, and that's what matters to you, okay? It can be a future leader, it can be global peace, it can be whatever you want. So the way to answer it is kind of to identify the value, the philosophy. What do you want to do? Kind of, I want to bring cheap medical devices to rural areas in Africa, okay? Or cheap healthcare to rural areas, okay? That sounds good. So that's my philosophy. But why is this connected to you? So then you can tell your personal story. Maybe my parents were doctors. My entire childhood was playing with needles and tubes in hospitals while they were doing operations. While I was in hospital, as a child, I saw lots of parents crying, not because their patients were the patients weren't doing well, but because they didn't have any money. I'm just making up this story as we go along. Didn't have any money, and then I knew I wanted to do something about it. I went to study economics, and then I worked in a healthcare company. And now Now I won my MBA, and I'm going to change the healthcare system in wherever, America, Africa. So you see, I kind of built the story. I gave them a heading, and then I'm going to show you another example. I gave a heading, and then I kind of said, okay, and this is why it's important for me, etc. So I identified the value, and then I kind of worked on it. And then you can kind of work on 2 or 3 stories, okay? So like with me, I told you my childhood story, right? It's not my story, I'm sorry. My parents aren't doctors, but I used to go to hospital because my parents were busy. And in my professional career, I saw this inequality, and I saw how African countries have rural areas have a problem to pay for decent healthcare services. And I tried to do something about it, but I was working for a big pharma company that only cared about the money, and that's not what I want to do. And so here are my two stories, and I connected them to my goals, to the theme, etc., etc. Okay, just always stay connected to the theme. Don't go somewhere too far. Okay, I'm an astronaut and I want to fly to Mars, but I want to bring healthcare. No, that's too far. And again, be very sincere. Okay, and be a people's person. Just explain your story. You don't have to, your CV talks about the achievements. Now it's just talking about your story. Stanford really care about this human touch. It's very important for them. Don't be a robot. Okay, just explain your story. Why did you make your choices? Okay, why? The resume is all about, I went to study my undergraduate degree in engineering, but in the story, you can explain why you studied engineering. So it's very different here. A good structure would be kind of tell the story, we said, kind of thing, and then you kind of can connect the people to the situation, and what you can do is connect it to your story, your life, and then connect it to the theme, okay? And let me show you some examples. First of all, you can go on our website. We have lots of essay examples as well. But again, you have to kind of connect it to the theme. So again, I want to bring cheap health care to rural areas. And now you can tell some stories and they all get connected, okay? And my father told me always help people and connect it to people. You can connect it to your job. You can connect it to your academics, however you want. Okay, let me show you two examples. So the first one, I'm going to read them. Since sustainability is the cornerstone of my life and ultimately what matters to me most. Okay, and so he kind of started with a statement and then he went in the story. At a very young age, I did blah, 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 blah. I was aware, I collected cans. I then went to study something. Then I worked. I was in charge of sustainability in my workplace, etc. So you can understand how we developed this to 2 or 3 stories. Another person said, from an early age, education has always been the thing that matters most to me. Okay, and then he explained why. I grew up in a family, whatever, immigrants, whatever. My parents, so he connected it to his childhood, to his parents, maybe to education and university. Then maybe I went to Wall Street. I was a banker, no connection, but I quickly understood that I don't want to do this. And then I went to private equity that invest in education. So again, try and connect it all to the goals. Now, what do I do if I want a career shift? It's fine. No one said, that he doesn't want to go and work for Google because he cares about education. Okay, you can definitely connect all this to why you want an MBA and why Stanford, etc. in the next essay. So again, you can check out aringo.com. Lots of examples for every single essay you can think of. And that was the what matters most, such a difficult essay. Again, you can ask questions. I think we have another 6 minutes for this presentation, and then I'm just going to answer questions. The second essay is usually why Stanford. And this is a very straightforward essay. So the way to answer it is, just to have clear and specific goals. And if you have goals, okay, my short-term goal is to be a product manager at Google. My long-term goal is to open a startup. So very specific. And you can actually be specific about the goal. I want to be a product manager in cloud services, and I want to open a startup connecting small to medium businesses to the cloud services, whatever. So very, very specific. It's okay. Of course, you need to connect this to the why Stanford part. Okay, and I'm going to take these and these courses. I'm going to be in these clubs, and I want to be in this professor's class. Okay, so I connected my goal to Stanford. I'll show you an example soon. But the structure, again, is very simple. Okay, try and imagine what you want to do when you grow up, and now try and imagine how can you get there. So my dream is to open $1 billion tech startup. How am I going to get there? Well, I'm going to finish my MBA. I'm going to work for Amazon for 3 years as a product manager. Then I'm going to get promoted to VP something in a startup. And then in 10 years, I'll open my startup. And then I'm connecting to Stanford because at Stanford, I'm going to learn this and this. I'm going to be in this club, etc., etc. Okay, and I gave here like a very silly example. Okay, I love restaurants. I love food. Okay, whatever. I love the noise. At 18, I started working as a waiter. Then I was a shift manager. And at the end, I became a restaurant manager. Wow. My dream is to open a restaurant chain. Where? In California. Why in California? Because Stanford are in California. So let's try and connect it. How am I going to do this? Well, I'm missing some financial and marketing knowledge, which I hope to get at Stanford at this and this course. Okay, so I kind of started with a passion, but not everybody has a passion. You can just start with kind of, I want to be a product manager, or I want to go to Stanford and learn this and this to become, there's no structure here, but just don't forget to answer the question, why MBA and why Stanford, and connect that to yourself. Okay. The optional essays. So in Stanford last year, there were up to three optional essays. Again, if you don't have anything to write in the optional essays, don't answer them. Okay, it's not mandatory. If you're exceptional, you don't have anything additional to say, don't say it. Don't waste anyone's time. On the other hand, we usually do advise to write an optional essay because usually you have more to say than those two mandatory essays. And in Stanford, there's two quite tough optional essays. One is about when did you create a positive impact? It's quite a tough essay. And the second one is if your background ever influenced some kind of situation. So let's talk about them a bit. The positive impact one is difficult. You don't have to take a professional example if you don't have one. It can also be an extracurricular example. It can be your student life example, anything you want. It needs to be a story, okay? And the story can be a big story or a small story. What would be a small story? When I was in the army, I commanded one person who didn't have any motivation. I told him to do something, but he didn't do it. Instead of punishing him, I spoke to him. I understood he has problems at home. I'm just making this up, so I'm not sure what the problems were. I decided to give him some time off. And when he came back, I decided to discuss with him which positions he would feel comfortable in. And I gave him certain tasks. And funnily enough, he really changed, and he was amazing. And he was the number one person I was the army number one person in my squad or in my team or whatever. This is a very small story. It impacted one person, but I changed his life, or at least changed his way that he worked in this place. So that's a small story. Of course, a big story can be, I did a whole turnaround. I did something. I came into a situation which was very bad. I did A, B, C, and then I flipped it around, and we managed to sell to the client that was very disappointed with us. And he even came back for additional services. So I did some kind of very big thing, and we sold $50 million or $1 million or whatever. So it can be like a huge story, and my managers loved me, and I got a huge bonus and whatever. And it can also just be a small story. It doesn't really matter as long as you show, a positive result at the end, maybe even a quantifiable result with a dollar sign, or just someone that succeeded in his job. We were going to fire him, but in the end, he got like top grades in every year since, or something like that. So we kind of managed to impact him. You can also try and say like what you got out of it. So I impacted this guy's life, but actually I feel I learned more than him, because I know that, when someone has an issue, before I fire him, I can actually talk to them and maybe understand what the problem is, whatever. So you can try and explain why this is important to you. The second, by the way, you can start with the questions. We're nearly at the end. The second optional question was kind of a tough one, because not everybody had an answer for that. And again, optional is optional. If you don't have a good answer to the optional question, you don't have to answer it. And here it was kind of did your background influence you or influence a situation? And again, here, we play gender or race or some kind of background. So maybe you were the only German person in an American company, or you were the only female in a male-dominated team. And by the way, if you don't have this, again, just don't answer it, okay? Because don't say, oh, I was the only person with glasses on a team. Come on. Okay, so it has to be something significant. And again, if it looks like a life experience, tell us about it. Okay, maybe you had to prove something, and you managed to prove, and you opened the door for more female engineers to join this oil company. Okay, that is amazing. But if you don't have an amazing story, maybe you don't tell it. Okay, so those are a bit about the optional essays. Again, check aringo.com. Lots and lots of optional essay examples. Right, the last section of the application would be for you to mention 2 recommenders, and these recommenders will be writing a recommendation for you. The Stanford recommendation is quite long. I can't remember how long it is, but it can be over 1,000 words. So it's quite long, so choose carefully. And again, this is a question to the chat. This is our last interactive question. Then you can ask me whatever and I'll answer. Who I need, to choose 2 recommenders out of this list. Who should I choose? You can read. I'm going to talk while you answer. So the first one is my school teacher. And I know this was a long time ago, but she's going to give me the best recommendation. She's going to say, like, she's been teaching for 20 years, and I'm the best 16-year-old student she's ever seen. Okay, she was, this is in high school, but, I was amazing. I used to bring her an apple every morning. I got 100 in every test. Okay, so, like, I used to be a top-notch student. Another one is going to my university professor and saying, like, any university professor, and he'll say, like, Shimri was amazing. He sat in the first row, and, he used to always give me good answers and used to ask good questions, and he wrote a great thesis. I gave him 100, so that's a good university professor. Another one is the Minister of Agriculture. So I didn't tell you, my family know a Minister of Tourism or something in a government because he's a family friend or something like that. So, I'm just going to ask him for recommendation. And he can say, I've known Shimri for 20 years. I used to change his diapers and play football with him. Well, maybe not the diapers. Play football with him. And, I used to do his math homework with him. Since then, I remember he was a bright kid. And, I really recommend Stanford to recruit him. I can also take my boss. So, I'm a programmer. My boss is a team manager. He's not very senior, but, he knows me very well. And he can say, I manage 3 programmers and Shimri is the best. I can go higher than my boss, okay? I can go to my boss's boss in a small company, or maybe my boss's boss's boss, or, someone very senior. And he won't know me very well, but, he has a very nice title, right? I'm a CFO, I'm a CEO, I'm a whatever department manager. So, he might say, I don't work with Shimri on a daily basis, but when he shows me his monthly presentation, I'm impressed, or his boss is impressed. Or, my favorite, my mom, she's known me, for the last forever. Well, she's known me forever. And she can say, I used to be the cutest boy, and, I'm always good. I used to do the washing up, and, I'm such a good boy, and, Stanford should take me. So we need to choose 2 recommendations, okay, maybe the mother wasn't such a good example. We need to choose 2 out of these 6. Who do you think the 2 best recommenders are? By the way, we're nearly at the last, we're at the last slide. There's just some examples afterwards. So you can also start asking questions. But again, I would love to hear, who's the best recommender, or maybe the best 2 recommendations. I can also see your question. I'm going to answer all of them. A lot of questions on MSX. I'll definitely answer that as well. So which recommender? Give me 1 recommender that you love. You can give me the number. School teacher is 1, university professor 2, minister, so a celebrity. 3, boss, not very senior, but he knows me. 4, a very senior person that doesn't know me. 5, my mom, she knows me the best, but she's my mom. Wow, Vikram, school teacher. Ankit, he likes the boss. Sharmishta, who do you like, the university professor and the boss? I'll wait 1 more second. The boss and the husband. I didn't even give a husband. See clouds. I didn't even give a husband. Good one. I'm going to change the mother to a husband. Good one. Next time. Check out my next video about Stanford in a year. It's going to say my... Right. So, and someone said, Georgie, you understood there's never a good answer here. So Georgie said, whoever knows me best. So Vikram, the wife. So listen, the answer is, first of all, you're right. There isn't a good answer here. I kind of agree with Georgie. But actually the answer is, I'm actually waiting for 1 more answer to see maybe someone's right. Their answer is boss. That is the right answer. So most of you did write boss. And the reason is that's exactly what the school is looking for. They know they can't compare between a lawyer and accountant. They know they can't compare between your boss and someone else's boss. Okay, this is impossible. But the boss can kind of be a bit subjective, and he can say, because in your resume, you're very objective. You can say, you can't say I'm the best. You can say, I led a team, or, I was selected, but you can't say I'm very good. But your boss can. He can be super subjective, and he can say, I manage 5 people. Shimri is the best. Your mother can't do that, even if you have 5 siblings, okay? She's not going to say you're the best or you're such a good boy. Okay, so the boss is a good example. And if you ask Stanford admissions, they will tell you they want your direct manager. They don't care about his title. Who's this? By the way, who's the worst here? Okay, the mother is just silly. Okay, that's not a good example. The worst here is actually the celebrity. Okay, the Minister of Agriculture, because it's obvious he doesn't really know you. Okay, and he's a family friend. Stanford don't care about your family friends. They care about someone who knows you, preferably from a professional environment. And therefore, actually, the second best recommender here is the boss's boss. And although he only met you once a month for something, he can still give a recommendation about your work and professionalism. So the best recommender is your direct boss. Usually the best second recommender is your previous boss, okay, if you move the workplace or something like that. So again, this is a very individual question. And again, if you want to contact me later, send me your CV and GMAT first, and tell me your recommendation options, and I can help you. Again, this is personal because sometimes you don't want to tell your boss that you want to leave for an MBA, but usually they look for... You're right. Sorry, actually, you tell me the mom would give good vibes. I agree about that. If she says Shimri is such a nice boy, but they Stanford are looking for a professional recommendation, and that's why in this case the boss is actually very good. The second one would probably be the boss's boss. Sometimes you can't bring 2 recommendations from your workplace, and again, maybe not from your previous workplace because you haven't changed workplaces, and you can only bring 1. So the second one could be, if you can't bring your boss's boss, it could be from the professor. Okay, but I'm telling you now that's less good. Can you bring a recommendation from an extracurricular activity? The answer is yes, if it's something that you had a lot of hours there. So for example, if you volunteer somewhere and you've worked with a team manager for this volunteering, but you've done this like for 3 years, yes, you can bring an extracurricular or volunteering experience recommender as well. Just to be honest, this is more rare, and it has to be from 2 good reasons. 1, maybe you don't have a very good professional recommender, and 2, you have a very strong extracurricular activities recommender. So that's a client is a very good place, C-Cloud, and client is a very big issue because he owes you something, you owe them something. But sometimes I have entrepreneurs on that I work with, and I'm working now with someone. He has his own company. He doesn't have a boss. No one knows him from university. He has great grades, but no one knows him. And we're using a client, okay? And it could be a client, a business partner. If you don't have anyone else, you should use that. Okay, I just want to wrap the presentation, and then I'm going to answer all your questions, believe it or not. So you need 2 recommendations. And like we said, we really prefer a direct manager or maybe a manager's manager. Those are the best. And a perfect recommendation would be from a work setting. And like I said, it's subjective. I manage 10 people, but Shimri is the best. Okay, you really can go into that. But the recommender needs to give lots of examples. He can't just say, I'm the best. He needs to say, Shimri is the best. Let me give you an example. For example, last year, there was this huge issue, and Shimri turned it around, and he did this and this and that. And our client said he's amazing, and we gave him a big bonus. Okay, so I really showed an example why I think Shimri is very good. I'm putting here an obvious tip. Again, choose the recommenders wisely. And maybe you can say, listen, you're going to recommend me for Stanford. I just want to remind you that I was top in the team. I just want to remind you about this project that, you told me I was very good. Of course, the recommender is going to write whatever he wants or she wants, but, try and just remind them about the things that you feel might help. So that's it. That's the application. And again, you apply, you wait 5 weeks, and then maybe you get an interview. I'm actually going to leave the interview for the next session because that's another whole session, how to interview for Stanford and for top MBA programs. Check me out on YouTube. I think I have a session about how to interview for top MBA programs. That was the Stanford presentation. If you're ready for a life-changing experience, Aringo's here to help. If you want to send me your resume and your GMAT score and maybe your school wish list, is it Stanford or others? This is my email. Happy to review. Again, if you send me your resume and GMAT score and school wish list, always happy to help. And now I'm going to go over your questions, and I'm going to start from the beginning, and I'm going to try and not repeat the questions. So some of you asked the same question, so I hope I'm going to answer them. So let's start. There was a question, are we planning to have more sessions? Yes, we have lots of these sessions. And we're having a session in 2 weeks about MBA versus executive MBA. So check us out on GMAT Club on the 16th of June. Okay. So I'm starting with the questions. And okay, first question from Tejas. 750 GMAT. That's amazing. Okay. And you're a software engineer from India. Overpopulated background, but still very good. Can you get an M7 school? Yes, no. I have no idea. I don't know anything about you. Extracurriculars, managerial experience. Have you worked with international teams? Were you promoted faster than your peers? What's your GPA? Which schools are you aiming for? How good is your application going to look like? Are you good at writing? Are you going to use Aringo? I don't know what. So great question, but I don't know anything about your profile. GMAT is only 30%, remember? So if you have a 750, great. You get 27 points out of 30, but what about the other 70 points? So again, if someone wants to send me their resume and GMAT score and school wish list, I'm happy to help, but very hard for me on the YouTube session, to answer just from a small chat. Okay, Tijan, I'm just carrying on with you. So you kind of said you see entrepreneurship. That's fantastic. And a lot of people say in the long term, they want entrepreneurship, but just don't forget to connect the dots. Don't forget to say, I was a software engineer. I want the MBA. I want to move to product management because that's more of a business role. And in the long term, I see myself in entrepreneurship. Okay, just don't forget to connect the dots and you should be fine. Okay, Meenakshi actually asked about if I'm going to make it wider, if you have more than 10 or 12 or 15 years of experience. Okay, so he actually asked if being over 45 is a disadvantage. So it's not just a disadvantage. If you have more than 12 years of experience, I'm going to generalize this, it's going to be nearly impossible to apply to a top 10 MBA program, regular MBA program. Schools usually don't want candidates with so much experience. By the way, the reason is the employers. Okay, you remember the list of employers? McKinsey are looking for young, talented people with 5-6 years of experience and an MBA. They're not looking for someone with 20 years of experience for a consultant position. So they're coming with certain job profiles. Again, they might have a job for you, but it's not in the general job profiles. And then Stanford admissions are going to say, well, you're not in the job profile. You might ruin my statistics. You might not find a job. So it's really tough to get in with more than 12 years of experience. Luckily for you, there's some special programs which are designed for senior candidates with more than 8 or 10 years of experience as a minimum. Send me an email. I can send you these programs, but I'll just mention them verbally. Stanford MSX is probably one of the best programs. So you can look at it as a 1-year MBA program for senior applicants. Another program is the MIT Sloan Fellows, a 1-year MBA program. London Business School Sloan program, that's a third one. Again, I think the average age there is 40, average. And years of experience, 17, 18. There's a couple more programs at the Foster in Seattle, USC at Los Angeles. Again, send me an email and I'll try and help you from there. Okay. Satish, thanks for your comment. 740 GMAT. Again, I don't know if that's enough to get into Stanford, not enough to get into Stanford, right? Because that's just one factor. So, it's good in that one factor. Again, you get 25 out of 30 or whatever, fine. But what about the other 70 points? I don't know your, I'm just giving a general thing. I don't know your gender, your origin, your professional background, your educational background, your international experience, all the stuff that the schools are looking for, your collaborative experience. Okay, I can see someone enjoyed that I said that a lot of candidates don't go to Harvard, and yes, remember that every person, even on this chat, remember at the beginning of this session, we said has different criteria for why to choose a business school, and some people just prefer more money, or some people prefer the West Coast, or whatever. Okay. Lovely Akomize is asking about schools that give more scholarships on average. First of all schools give lots of scholarships. I think last year over 50% of the candidates working with Aringo got scholarships. I think we had 12 or 14 full rides, full scholarships. Some of them even more, which included living expenses in Chicago, in Georgetown. We had one in Columbia, one in MIT. Harvard, which is different because that's socioeconomical reasons, but financial aid scholarships. So there's lots of scholarships. Which give the most? It's not a fair question because it comes back to the criteria. Do you prefer a scholarship maybe in a lower ranked school than getting into a higher ranked program or not? So the reason it's not a fair question is, on general, a lower ranked school, you'll have higher chances of acceptance, right? I mean, that makes sense. It's easier to get into Kentucky Community College than to get into Columbia. I think we'll all agree. And there's a higher chance of getting a scholarship as well because it's an easier school to get into. So your profile would be wow for Kentucky Community College, if there is a university like that. But for Columbia, you might be mediocre. So generally, I'm saying something very general, which not necessarily is true. It's easier to get into lower ranked schools, and your chances for a scholarship are also higher. Are there schools on average that give higher scholarships? To be honest, I don't know exactly that statistic because I speak to candidates and they tell me I want an M7 school, I want a top 5 or top 7 school. Now tell me where my chances are highest for scholarships. And then out of those schools, I kind of know. For example, I've had a lot of luck with Northmore. My candidates had a lot of luck this year with Northwestern. Very nice scholarships, 70,000, 80,000 full ride scholarships, and a lot of them received scholarships. For example, this year at Cornell and Yale, I don't want to badmouth anyone, we got lots of scholarships, but the scholarships weren't very high. On the other hand, we had a candidate that did go to Cornell and came with a lot of diversity background, and he got a full ride. So it really depends on you and who you are and which schools you're applying to. Wow, Rafael, that's a great question. So Rafael asked, do you have to pay back the scholarship after you graduate? The answer is no. Scholarship, fellowship, financial aid, you get money. It usually goes towards the tuition, so you actually end up paying less tuition. In most cases, you don't need to repay anything. I know some exceptional cases. I know a very specific scholarship that for a certain origin, that if you don't go back to your home country after 5 years, you need to repay it. But that's a very, very specific case. Most school scholarships, you don't need to repay them. Although the school will definitely look for donations from you, and we'll look at a class gift, which usually means can you give some money for future students once you're a post-MBA and you work and give back, etc. So I think at London, I'm a London Business School graduate. I think I get every month or two a request for can you donate this, and we're having a special 48 hours of donations and things like that. And my class gave a big class gift, etc., because we really want to give back to where we studied. So again, Vikram's asking about someone with 15 years of experience. I think I gave some answers. And again, you can Google I don't exactly know how to answer you here on the chat. I'll actually, maybe I can answer here on the chat. No, I can't. Sorry, lots of issues here. But if you go into our website, aringo.com, there's a whole executive MBA section. There's full-time executive MBAs. There's part-time executive MBAs. There's 5 programs, which I mentioned before, which is at LA, Seattle, San Francisco, Boston, and London, which are dedicated for senior candidates. So there's I was going to say there's lots, but there's 5 programs like that for senior candidates with more than 12 years of experience. So definitely you can check those out. Okay, so I'm at Minakshi's question. This is a great question. And your question is, if I have another degree, okay, a master's degree, or maybe even an MBA, which I did straight after my undergraduate, first of all, can I apply for a second MBA? The answer is yes. And then which scores should I show, my undergraduate degree or my master's degree? Okay, so my answer is show whatever you think represents you better. So in your resume, you can show undergraduate degree in engineering, master's degree in business, and then one bullet under that, magna cum laude, okay, under the MBA, because that was your higher degree or higher GPA. So show whatever you want to show, whatever you feel is more impressive. There's no rules here. Wow, such a good question from Soma Sheker. Such a good question. What if I don't have recommendations? If I'm blunt, so you won't go to a top MBA. You have to have 2 recommendations. School like Stanford, there's no way around that. To be honest, I've worked with candidates from secret services, okay, or for military candidates, where I didn't even know the surname of my candidate that I worked with now. I've worked with someone now for 4 or 5 months. I don't even know his surname. We used the first letter of his recommenders. Okay, one of them, the recommender's name is D. And we had to open a special Gmail for this recommender because he can't use his work email, which is some kind of government organization email. Okay, by the way, don't kidnap me and ask me stuff about my client. I don't know anything about him. I know a lot about his achievements, but I don't know where he works. I don't know who his recommenders are. So I don't have any secret information. Even that, we found 2 recommenders, okay? And he used them, again, and he explained to the school he submitted to, which was Stanford and MIT, why he can't give the full names and why he can't disclose much information in his application. He actually got into Chicago with a full scholarship. This guy is still waiting for Stanford answer, okay? So, and MIT said no, okay? So you can see some schools liked what we said, some schools didn't. That's fine. What if you don't have a professional recommendation, you don't have an educational recommendation, we said your mother isn't good, you don't have someone else, you're in trouble. Find someone, find a client, find a business partner, you have to find someone. Extracurricular activity. Next question, Tulip, which is better, GMAT or GRE? Same. All schools except both. I didn't do any statistics on Stanford, but I have seen US schools, something like 20 to 25% of the candidates are submitting GRE. So this is a big number. And again, they're indifferent. Very, very, very few recruiters at the end of the MBA might ask you for your GMAT score. Very few, usually consulting firms. And they might have a preference for GMAT scores. I've seen this in some blogs. I've asked my candidates from previous years. No one mentioned this to me. So I've seen this, but still, I don't know how much it was important. And if you show a high GRE, McKinsey won't recruit you. So I'm not 100% sure that was true, but I have seen that. So, you can decide if that's important. Okay, what percent of applicants are usually interviewed? Ikrar, I love that question. And it really depends on the school. Okay, so in schools that have a 20-25% acceptance rate, okay, London Business School, or Duke, so probably 50% will be interviewed and 50% will pass that interview. But in schools like Stanford with 6% acceptance rate, so probably 1 in 8 will be interviewed and only, I don't know, 2/3 of those will be accepted. So it really depends which school. Northwestern, Kellogg usually interviews everyone. So it just depends which school. It really differentiates and differs from school to school. It depends on the school. UCLA, I've had less interviews, but a very high success rate of passing an interview. So is that the school? Are those my 8 candidates that I had this year? I'm also not sure because it's not apples to apples. I know my candidates, but it's hard to know if it's my candidates or not. Okay, we're continuing. Is Stanford MSX good for someone with 15 years of experience? Definitely answer that. The answer is yes. CVs, resumes, 1 page only. 1 page only. So we answered that also during the presentation. Okay, I'm running with your questions. We're nearly there. Which scholarships can you apply to? So I just want to mention this again. Rafael, okay, so we said you don't have to pay back the scholarships, but the scholarships are part of the school. Okay, so I don't know many external scholarships, but if you're applying to Stanford, they have some automatic scholarships for merit. They have financial aid scholarships that you need to apply for. They might have some kind of external scholarship like Knight Hennessy, if people know what that is, which is an external scholarship only for people applying to Stanford. So you need to check, but usually the scholarships will be part of your school application. Again, I don't know a Merrill Lynch, whatever, Goldman Sachs scholarship. These scholarships tend to be on the internet, but not many winners. So yes, definitely apply to whatever you want, but your best chance is usually to apply to the school with a very strong application and hope to get a scholarship from that school. I'm just whizzing through your questions. Sorry that I'm running so quickly. I'm just trying so we could, hopefully just answer another 10 questions. Okay. I'm still looking through all your answers with the boss and the mother. Sorry, Cloud, C-Cloud, you're asking if you can see this presentation later. Of course. I mean, this is a YouTube presentation. You can watch it anytime. Just going to say the obvious. We answered Vikram, if you can apply with more experience in 10 years. Yes, to MSX, definitely. Okay, Ankit, you asked, what do you think values the most Stanford? So what do Stanford value the most? And I think we kind of said that. I think I said it maybe many times. Collaborative. It's a collaborative environment, so you have to show that in your past experience. But another thing is, obviously, you have to, this is the hardest school to get into. You have to be smart. You have to be, had the faster promotions, faster progress than your peers. You have to have good education. You have to have great GMAT. You have to have, everything's good. Okay, so I had someone call me last week, and so he's not a she, it's a he that comes from a super competitive background, okay, and his GMAT is 50 points below the Stanford average. It's actually 60 because it was 680, and he has 3 years of experience and in one company with no promotions. But he really, 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 really wants Stanford. And it was very important for him to say, but he really, 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 really wants Stanford. And he has money. He wants to pay me to help him with his Stanford application. And unfortunately, or for him or for me, I don't think it's unfortunate. I think it's actually fortunate. I said, I'm so sorry, but I only work with people that I think that can get in. He won't get in, okay? This is the hardest school in the world to get into. If your GMAT is below level, if you don't have anything in your professional experience, if you don't have anything in your private experience, extracurricular experience, if your education isn't so good, you're not going to get in. If all of those are perfect, then if your applications are amazing, then you have a higher chance. And I think don't be too alarmed from the 6% acceptance rate. Yes, it's a very tough school, and definitely work on backup options as well. But if you don't have 60 points below average, and if you feel your business professional experience is above average, and if you feel your education is above average, yes, you have a shot. Okay, so it all can be done. Again, what are the values? They want to see someone great, and they want to see him collaborative as well. Can a person with a poor GPA get in? Okay, I love that question. Meenakshi, thank you for that. And the answer is yes. Okay, of course, what is a poor GPA? Is it a 3.0, 2.9, 2.8, or is it 2.0? So yes, it can be bad or low. In some cases, we like to explain it. In some cases, we don't. So obviously, if you're from India and you went to IIT, best college for engineering, and you got a 70, that might be top 5% in your class. So it might not sound a lot, 70, but that might be amazing. So just make sure you kind of mention that either on the resume or on the essays that you got 70 and that's top 5% in the class. Or just, don't be worried because Stanford know this. And if you went to a very unknown college and you got a very high score, you can mention that as well. Why did you go to this college? So sometimes we explain things, low GPAs, but you don't have to. Just depends on the case. So sorry, not a definitive answer. It depends on the case. Satish, specifically looking for assistance, applying to MSX program. Talk to me. You have my email. Send me your GMAT or executive assessment if you know what that is. or take that exam first, send me your CV, and we can discuss. Okay, 2 more questions and we're done. Okay, so the first one is, I think we kind of said what I think Stanford look for and what's the value. So I think we said collaborative, but I think you actually asked it in a very nice way, Ankit. So a value which is non-negotiable kind of thing, and for a future student. And I would like to take you further. Let's say you get into Stanford and you're an alumnus now, okay? And I think, what do you think, how do you think you can use Stanford the best? And that's what Stanford is looking for. They're looking for alumnus alumni that want to stay in touch with the school and want to contribute to the school, want to contribute to the student body as an alumni, okay? Maybe to come to campus and explain to them how venture capital works. They want you to be involved throughout your education and after, okay? So these are things that Stanford really value. Okay, and another question about the GPA of graduate or undergraduate. I think we answered that. Whatever's better. Okay, if both are amazing, mention both. If only one is amazing, mention that one. And I think we're nearly at the last question. PS, we'll ask that one. Okay, so a very general question, less about Stanford. So I'll answer it very quickly, but I think this will be the last question. Are they one-year MBAs in the US? Go into our website, or you can just Google Aringo, one-year MBA. You'll see a list. The difference is they usually don't have a summer internship because you learn 12 months. And they're very good if you know what you want to do at the end of your MBA, or maybe you have a job already. They're usually a bit less advisable for people looking for a career shift. But again, just look on our website. So thank you very, very much. This was a very long session. I hope you now are all on the same page regarding top MBA programs, which was the first part, know a lot about Stanford, which was the second part, and have some ideas about how to write a stellar application for Stanford, which was our third part of this discussion. The fourth one was answering lots of questions. Feel free to go back, forward in this presentation, give me a thumbs up. I don't know why, but I think that counts. Check us out on aringo.com. I'm very happy answering personal questions, but I always need your resume and your GMAT score. If you don't have a GMAT, go and take it before contacting me so I can give you a better chances assessment. I was Shimri. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for the interactive sessions. You guys rocked. And I need to change the mother to a husband or wife. I love that advice. Thank you. And that was it. So thank you very much. And see you again. 16th of June, I have another session. MBA versus Executive MBA. See you then. Bye. Thank you, GMAT Club, for hosting us. Bye for now.